Hello and welcome to anyone who's watching this video. I've picked up a Stanley block plane again in the hunt for cheap block plane that's acceptably made. This is the Stanley 220. At the moment in Screwfix it's on discount at about £26.50. Normally they're around about £33. I've already opened the packaging on this because I'm not into self-harm, and getting them out of the packaging is a life or death experience, so I've already opened it so we can have a look at it. Why they make packaging so difficult to get into, I don't know. So a quick look at it. The casting's very coarse. The mouth looks quite straight. That part of the mouth looks quite square and straight. It's not too sharp on the edges. It has had the corners taken off the bottoms to a degree. Let's see if it'll adjust. That's too tight. I might need a screwdriver in there. Right, come. Right. Let's see if we've got any adjustment on it. Right, so we've got lateral adjustment. So it's moving readily from one side to the other. So that's a good sign. And the blade seems to be coming through quite square. What I have noticed is that there's not enough. When you can get that screw past that there, it's not tight enough. That lever there isn't tight enough to hold the blade straight. It's too sloppy. So it looks as though you might have to just take that down with a screwdriver after you've assembled it to get it smooth. There seems to be two types of this 220 about. There's one with a small knob on it with a recess in, but this one's done in the casting. So whether this is a newer, cheaper variant, I'm not sure. Let's just take the blade out and have a look what we've got in there. This is metal. I would say it was cast. It's got a bit of weight to it. It's got the quick lever cap to remove it. That bit in there doesn't seem to have been riveted correctly. That piece, that pin that's holding it on there, doesn't seem to be fully riveted. Like it's only partly riveted over. So the blade seems to be fine. I wouldn't expect anything else really. Stanley blades tend to be okay, even the cheaper ones. So that seems to be acceptable. It's a bit rough ground, but it all seems to be acceptable. And it is straight, which is always reassuring. So the rest of it, let's take this out. This is your usual type of adjuster. that's got a nice clean thread on it, and that's got a nice clean thread on it. It's not badly made at all. So have a look at the casting. This is milled and it looks quite good. And the ramp in there, it's got a milled machined ramp as well, which is a good sign. So that fits in there nicely. It's got let me have a look at the threads in there. That thread in there is quite clean and healthy, and that thread in there is quite clean and healthy. So that's good. There's a bit of weight to it, which is not a bad thing with a block plane. It's nice to have a bit of weight sometimes. But all in all, that runs in there nicely, and it's sitting in there. It's sitting in there correctly. There's no, it's not sitting up or riding over anything like the previous, the Magnuson one that I had. It's sitting where it should be in its recess there. So all in all, that looks quite good. I shall take it into the garage now and give it a sharpen. I shall try it just as it is first, and then I'll give it a sharpen and see what happens. I'm just looking to see if there's anything on the box to say where it's made, but it doesn't seem to be. There's no country of manufacture on there, just an importer. So I'll take it and I'll try it and I'll come back. Right, back. Just a quick thing I've noticed in reassembling it. I think I realise now why that screw isn't working. The lever hasn't got enough slack on it. I think what's actually happening is this bit of the adjuster here. Take that out of there. I think that raised bit on that adjuster where the hole's been punched through isn't required, I don't think. And I think what's actually happening, that's fouling on this part of the cap, lever cap, and it's not passing through there. I think it's hitting there. So in order to assemble it, you're having to excessively release that centre screw so that passes over there, and I think that's why it's not working properly. So I'm going to file that off, and I'll come back when I've sharpened it and had a go with it. Right, we're back. I've had a go with it, and I think it's a thumbs up from me. There was a very minor fault with it when I first opened the box. I'll just show you that. Very, very minor issue. But the lever locking mechanism wasn't tightening the blade enough. You couldn't take that screw down far enough for it to operate. And at first I thought it was this part here being too raised. So I did take the end off it, but I discovered that didn't make any difference. And what it actually turned out to be was this was slightly too straight, and this piece was fouling underneath the lever cap. So I just put a bit more of a crank on it so that it sits lower. Basically, when that's sitting on there, this piece sits lower here. I can get it in a position where you can see it. So when that's flat on there, this part here sits lower down that thread. So it just needed a little crank on it, that's all. And once that was done, it now slides. I moved it slightly. It now slides on fine, and the lever cap, get him in the right place. There we go. So when it's open, it'll slide past that screw nicely. And then when it's knocked across, there's plenty enough pressure. In fact, that's still a bit tight, so that can come out a bit more. So that'll slip into there, but there's still enough movement on the lever cap to get it tight. And that now works just fine. It was just a minor, just a crank of a bit of metal really. Let's just wind the blade back a bit. And then you can see we've got lateral adjustment. We've got some lateral adjustment, so that's to the right as you look at it. Let me just move it into a better position. That's to the left as you look at it, and that's to the right as you look at it. So we've got plenty of adjustment in lateral, and the adjuster's working just fine. The mouth is generous in its width, but that doesn't really matter. It works out the box. You can see here now, I've just run it over a flat plate just to show you that the bed's slightly hollow in both directions. It's no big deal, it works without that. I took it, all I did was take it straight out of the box, adjust it, just bent that tab down, and I could get shavings with it. It's a bit crude, a bit rough, but at this point I hadn't even sharpened the blade, and they are a little bit on the crude side, but it worked. So it can work out the box. It did need that bit of metal just bending slightly. So then after I'd sharpened it, there was a vast improvement. Cutting much smoother, and that was just with sharpening the blade and nothing else, just flattening the back of it and putting an edge on it. Was working much better. So after that, after I flattened, it wouldn't take a fine shaving, and the reason it won't take a really fine shaving is because the bed isn't flat enough. But it's flat enough to use, it just isn't flat enough for really fine work. So after I'd just flattened it a bit, which as you can see isn't very much, there was an improvement in the shavings that were coming off. I could get slightly thinner shaving out of it. So if you took the time to completely flatten it, I have no doubt it would take a really fine shaving. But there's nothing wrong with the shavings that are coming off it. You can see through that one, it's relatively thin, but I think you could get even finer if you fully flatten the bed. But it wasn't really about getting it to work like something expensive. It was just seeing if you could buy a reasonably priced block plane and use it out the box without having to tinker with it. Well, you could near enough, apart from bending the lateral adjuster. You could use it out of the box. So at £26.50, I think that's a bargain. I'm pleased with it, and there's nothing wrong with that. At £33, I still think it's worth it. The full price is about £33, and I think for a block plane with a pretty good blade in it for £33, you can't complain. Just keep an eye on that lateral adjuster if you've got an issue with this not gripping tight enough, because that is interfering down there. The end of the lateral adjuster was interfering with the spring cap. But I think generally there's not a problem. You could refine this more now. You could take the edges off it, you could flatten the bottom more. and I think you'd have a good plane that would last you, well, to be honest, I think it probably lasts you a lifetime. There's nothing wrong with it. It's cheap and it works just fine. I do like to have a bit of a finger hold in here, a bit of a notch in here so you can get hold of it, but it's not essential. It works just fine as it is. This being coarse probably helps with the grip. If you polished it up, you might find that it was more difficult to grip, but because it's such a coarse machining, it almost looks like it might have been linished actually. Such a coarse finish on it that it's actually got grip and it's absolutely fine. So I personally wouldn't polish the sides. I'd leave them like that and just take the edge off. I'd probably do a bit more work on the bottom, but I think it's good. I don't have any hesitation recommending that for the price. I think it's a benefit for general use, just for knocking about, and I think it's an advantage not to have an adjustable mouth, because that just brings in another element of problem. So I think the fact that it's so simple is a good thing, and I think if you're buying a cheap one, you're probably off better buying one that hasn't got an adjustable mouth on. It's just a basic standard angle block plane like this that just does the job. So I hope that helps somebody. It was something I was curious about, where the cheap block planes are feasible, and the conclusion I've come to is, yeah, I think that's fine. It'd give you years and years of use, and I think that just about covers everything. So so we'll leave it there, and thanks for watching and take care.